Hey guys, Sam here. Another episode of Ripping the Boards on right now. Hope you guys are having an amazing Tuesday. It's been a couple days since we were in Dover, Delaware for the Cup race and the Xfinity race on Saturday. So, I've been kind of busy the last couple days. I want to get you guys another video today. So, on Sunday, we had the race at Dover. Chase Elliott started on pole, led the most laps, led, I believe, 260 odd laps of the 400 lap race. I think that was Chase Elliott's overall most dominating performance on a track that's not a road course. We all know how good Chase Elliott has been on the road courses, especially the Gen 6 road courses, but this is probably his most dominating performance on a non-road course. So kudos to him. He didn't get the win. Of course, if you guys were watching, we all saw who was able to pull out the victory, and we can kind of see it coming, throughout the race. We could see who were the top 4 or 5 guys, right? So we saw that Chase Elliott, Ty Gibbs in the beginning of the race. You had William Byron lingering in the top 5 to 6. You had Denny Hamlin, of course, and then you had Kyle Larson, who was steadily working his way through the field the entire race. And so we were able to go stage 1, only having one caution for only for the competition caution at lap 35. Check tire wear because it had rained the day before, and then we went the remaining 78 laps under green to end the stage when we went back to green on lap 43. Yeah. So, it was really pretty straightforward. You had a challenge for the lead from Christopher Bell, but you could tell that whoever was in front was going to be extremely hard to pass, especially on newer tires. It had to be either 30 or so laps into a run, or maybe if you get lucky at the very end when the car in front just falls off a cliff. But it was really hard to pass out there, man. Dover has been notorious for being hard to pass, especially in the next gen era because of how defined the wake is in these cars nowadays. But yeah, stage 2, basically more of the same, other than the fact that Christopher Bell was able to get around Chase Elliott when Chase's pit crew made a mistake on pit road on the pit stop that they had during stage 2, and so Chase Elliott was able to leapfrog Christopher Bell and Denny Hamlin were able to leapfrog Chase Elliott when his pit crew made a mistake. Denny Hamlin pitted a lap before those two, so he was able to grab the lead, but then Christopher Bell made short work of him on the short run. And then leading up, he was able to hold him off the remainder of that second stage, which, again, track position is key. Clean air, king. If you're going to be in the lead, you're going to be able to more than likely retain it unless your car falls up a cliff. We saw lap down cars be able to hold up the fastest guys. Even at one point in the race, Ty Dillon was able to, not even trying to be a nuisance to Denny Hamlin, just hold him at bay for a little while and even pull away from him for a little bit, just because of how hard it is to get around basically anybody on track. There's a lot of work to be done on the next gen car. Still trying to determine whether it's ever going to get done at this point. This is the 4th season that we're using the next gen car. We saw a lot more parity in the first couple of seasons because everyone's notebook on these cars were so fresh. But now that we're in season 4, we can clearly see who are the top teams. And those clearly are the Hendrick Chevrolets and the Joe Gibbs Racing Toyotas. And then you know, sometimes you have sprinkled in there the Penske guys when they can get their stuff together. You have 2311, and then you have RFK, and sometimes Trackhouse. But all in all, you know who the main players are going to be week in and week out. And I, for one, I'm not going to complain about domination, like team domination, because history looks back fondly on those type of things. But in the moment, sometimes it can be a little irritating. You're like, oh, okay, we know who's in the mix. Unless something bad goes wrong for all those guys, we know who's basically going to be in the mix for the win, which I'm not really going to get annoyed with, but I know a lot of other people will. Maybe just a little bit, un poco. But yeah, I like to know who the fast guys are. That's why I love when races go green for the most part. Like, have a caution in there, you know. If you really have things going wrong, it gives you a little opportunity to get back on track. Because if you're just running green, you don't have that many opportunities. So you have in the first 2 stages there were only 3 cautions, which I, for one, I'm fine with because I want to know who has what. And so, yeah, you really have an opportunity to see who's fast when you have long green flag runs, because you get all 3 stages of a run. Well, all 4 stages if you count the actual pit stop itself, and then getting back on track and blending back in. So all 4 stages really. Short run, medium, long run, fuel, you know, pit stops for fuel and tires necessary, and then get back on track, blend back in. I like that. So, okay, let's move on. And then in stage 3, it was shaping up to be the Denny Hamlin show when he was able to get the lead from Christopher Bell after, well, Chase Elliott was able to get back to the lead after some pretty good pit stops from his crew. But then it became the Denny Hamlin show when we had a caution, I believe, for a few sprinkles of rain. I'm not exactly sure. I could be getting my things wrong. But yeah, Denny Hamlin was able to inherit the lead. And yeah, he never relinquished it. Even through a red flag at lap 386, 387, we had a rain shower. It was really brief, but it had poured in such a short amount of time. It poured so much rain that we had to red flag the race for, you know, just for that. And then it took about, I think they said 56 minutes of total red flag time. And Dover is only a 1 mile track, so it doesn't take that long to dry it. But even after you get the surface dry, behind the safer barrier, there's a little bit of opportunity for weepers, especially. And then you have, you know, a track like Dover is going to have some seams, so some of that water might get trapped in the seams, and you know, you can create weepers that way as well. I think the weepers were not that bad. No one was complaining about, you know, losing grip in the restart zone or just all the way around. It was mainly just a couple guys who were basically, their cars were on edge the whole event anyways. And so, those are the ones who were really suffering, if anything. So we get back green with a couple laps to go. So it was going to be a really quick sprint to the finish. We had 3 restarts. Denny Hamlin nailed all of them. And he had challenges from Christopher Bell. He had challenges from Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott. Never put a wheel wrong. Even on the last restart, he had Chase Briscoe, who had 2 fresh right side tires compared to Denny's older tires, even older than the other guys with older tires that were directly behind him as well. He never put a wheel wrong. I mean, you can also say that, because of how long the red flag was, and it was able to give them an opportunity to completely cool off the tires. And sometimes when you cool off a set of tires after they run for so long, they're like rocks, and so they're not going to build a lot of heat after that. They may just fall off a cliff, but the run was not going to be long enough for it to drastically affect it. And so, yeah, if you're in front, clean air is king. And so he was able to just hold on and edge out Chase Briscoe, who if probably the race was about 10 laps longer, I think Chase Briscoe could have worked on him and got around him, but it was just too little too late. And yeah, Denny Hamlin gets his 4th win of the season, his 58th win overall, which puts him, I think that keeps him 9th overall on the all-time race wins list. But he is now 2 behind Kevin Harvick, and he is 5 behind his former teammate in Kyle Busch. I think in the last few years, Denny Hamlin has really established himself as one of the top dogs of NASCAR, man. Like, we already knew beforehand that he was going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. We already knew that. But his last 5-6 years stretch, especially since he went winless in 2018, ever since then, man, boy's been on a mission. At least 2 wins every single year, and just running extremely consistent. Only thing I would look to see now is if he could hold on and survive all the rounds this time, and make it to the round of the Final 4. Well, for the last time in a while, it's going to be at Phoenix this year, so anything can happen to Phoenix. But it's usually a little bit more of a tame championship track, so it's a little more straightforward. You know who is good, and for the last few years, it's been the Penske boys. But we can see. That's just speculation right now. We're a few weeks away even from the start of the playoffs, so you don't want to get too far ahead of yourselves, right? So, with that being said, I think it was a pretty good race overall, but for the lead, it was going to be a little bit of a snooze fest because clean air was king, and if you were the leader, it was going to be really hard to get around you. Even Austin Dillon, who hadn't made a peep in the top 15 all day, I believe, was able to inherit some track position because of how the caution for rain fell. He had stayed out long, and then once we got back going, I'm sorry. Yeah, there was a caution for rain. There was 2 cautions for rain, actually. So he was able to inherit some track position, and yeah, Chase Elliott had to really work hard one of those last cautions just to get around to Austin Dillon, who hadn't really shown any speed all day, really. Any top 5 speed, that is. But get him some track position, get him some tires equal to the leaders or just about, and boom, that car seemed to come alive. I was like, oh, wow. Like, look, it's really a track position game. Which you hate to see, you know. I really want us to be able to get back to a place where if your car is fast, no matter where you are in the field, that you should be able to make your way through. And that's all these drivers, that's all they're asked for. If I'm better than the guy in front of me, I want to be able to get by him. And I don't want it to take like a million years to do. You know, like I got to work on this guy like lap after lap after lap after lap. You know, of course, at some tracks you're gonna have to work on them for multiple corners anyways. But when it gets to a point where it's like they're only able to hold me off because they're in front of me, and because of how the car, you know, that we have nowadays, they're only able to do that because of how the car's geometry affects aero. You know, air blocking has really become a big defense in today's NASCAR. I'm tired of seeing it being used, especially as much as it's being used. But you know, you gotta do what you gotta do to stay in front, so we can't knock it too much. But anyways, so let's move on from the race now, and let's talk lawsuit news. Last video, if you guys were tuning in, I was talking lawsuit news, and this is not necessarily do with the exact lawsuit itself, but more with a rule change that NASCAR had just implemented, saying that the top 36 teams in the point standings will basically be ensured starting positions in every race. And then for other open cars, even though we have technically 6 open cars and we only have 30 charters right now, so 4 additional open cars outside of 2311 and Front Row Motorsports, only 4 will be able to, you know, qualify into a race, qualify into an event on a given week. You know, like I said, it seems like NASCAR is being run a lot like the country, and you know, trying to do little things to distract you and to, you know, make it have the illusion of fairness and doing the right thing, right? So if you know anything about someone that'll do right by you when people are looking, but then, you know, if anybody turns their back, that they immediately do wrong, you know not to trust them. And so I'm hoping that nobody looks at this, like looks at NASCAR basically knocking the 2311 and Front Row Motorsports entries into the field based on points, because, you know, at this point in time, how are you going to pass them in points? Even if you get wins, you're not going to pass them in overall points. But I digress. What I'm saying is that you cannot be blinded by the fact that NASCAR has done this and not see it as just a ploy to look more fair than they are. NASCAR is a monopoly. They have been a monopoly for as long as they've been the biggest motorsport in America, in the United States, especially the biggest stock car series in the United States. And basically any competition is usually stamped out pretty quickly, or they just lose steam because most of the same fans would tune into, you know, the different series. There's going to be a little bit of fatigue in that anyways, you know? And so, other racing series, especially other stock car series, they're either too small to do anything to compete with NASCAR, or if they have any steam that could potentially draw away viewership from NASCAR, they usually don't last long. Take SRX, for instance. Take IROC. Those are no longer here. And even the new IROC project, I haven't heard anything about that in months. So we could just assume that it's dead. So, yeah. NASCAR is a monopoly. It's the sport I love. It's the sport I've loved for 26 years now. And I'm never going to stop loving it. But the leadership, the way that it's run, it needs to change. Because as I said in the previous video, NASCAR needs the teams and these drivers more than the drivers and teams need them. Yes, of course, you need a sanctioning body to make sure everything stays fair and equal. But how are things going to be fair and equal when they're not fair and equal with how they do business with each other in the industry? You can't get it right in the industry. How are you going to get it right, anywhere else? And so, I know I keep going around in circles, but what I'm saying is, this new rule is just a ploy to say, oh, we're not a monopoly. Oh, these teams are not in immediate danger of losing a lot of money, which they are. I read that open teams only make about a third of the winnings that charter teams will get. So not only do you not have as many liberties or rights as an open team compared to your chartered counterparts, but you also earn a lot less. And then certain sponsors are liable to leave if the insurance of a charter is no longer there. So the fact that there are judges that could probably look these teams dead in the face and say, and their lawyers, everyone, and say, yeah, we're gonna side with NASCAR on this. We don't see evidence of irreparable harm being done to you if this and that happens. I don't buy that for a second. I'm pretty sure they've been bought off, and yeah, I'm pretty sure they've just been bought off. But that's enough of my rambling for today. Just frustrated NASCAR fan. Has been, loved the sport for so long, most of my life, and I don't want the sport to continue going down the path that it's been going. Because if we keep going down that path, it's going to be something that we won't recognize in not too long from now. Let's not let it go there, guys. My name is Sam, and this has been another episode of Ripping the Boards. And we are Let's Talk NASCAR Racing. And you can follow me at Let's Talk _NASCAR on Instagram and Twitter. I hope to see you guys there. Give me likes in the comments, likes, comments, and subscribe if you're not already subscribed to the channel. This is Sam with Let's Talk NASCAR Racing. This has been Ripping the Boards. Catch you guys in the next episode. Peace.